welcome. My name is Kenneth Doran, and today I'm going to be telling some tales in the dark. So join me as we descend both figuratively and literally into the realm of myth, legend and Irish folklore on a journey that will take us through the very gates of hell itself. But before all that, let's start at the beginning. Right now, at this second, I'm standing at the bottom of a field in County Roscommon, surrounded by miles and miles of farmland. And today it's really, really lovely out, though it was raining a little bit earlier, so the ground is still a bit marshy. The sun is out and thankfully it's not too windy. But what's really special about this area is that it's known as the Rathcrogan Royal Complex, and it has a history dating back over 5,000 years. And 5,000 years ago, this landscape probably would have looked quite different than it does now. There are remnants of prehistoric residential sites, ancient royal places and forgotten temples just littered throughout this region. And we can only imagine what they would have looked like back then. And though only the faintest footprints of these early structures remain today, one site which is still here is older than all the others, and that is Oweynagat, known as Cave of the Cats, and that's where I am now. Back before Christianity made its way to Ireland's shores, Oweynagat was already well established as a site associated with spirits, fairies and the otherworld. In fact, this cave was considered by many to be Ireland's gateway to hell, a point of crossing between our world and the other, whatever that may be. And as you can imagine, this was a particularly sacred site during the pagan festival of Samhain, or Halloween. It was believed that during Samhain, spirits, fairies and even the undead would rise up from their graves and cross over into our realm. Well, this small, unassuming hole in the ground I'm standing outside of now is where a lot of that crossing happened. Just try to imagine hearing rumours in ancient Ireland of a site where spirits would crawl out of the cave's tiny entrance, dragging themselves up over the mounds of earth, struggling to break free. Picture the scores of undead marching from this site on Halloween night, and you can see why this cave was sometimes referred to as a hellmouth. But as fitting a name as Hellmouth would be, it's called Oweynagat, Cave of the Cats, a name which conjures up images of something less hellish and more domestic. But the name doesn't refer to house cats. Instead, think more like jungle cats, twisted creatures of mythical proportions, spawned from the depths of hell itself. These are the beasts that gave their name to this cave in the tale of Brickrew's Feast. And before I tell you that story, I think I'm going to go and try and get into the cave now. It's very tight trying to get in. As I said, it was raining earlier today, so it's a bit mucky. Oh, it's a bit tight. Okay. Now, Brickrew's Feast. The story goes that Brickrew, known as Brickrew the Poison Tongue, had promised a special, one-of-a-kind place at his feast to 3 Ulster warriors, Loigera, Connell and Cuchulainn. Unsurprisingly, a dispute broke out over who was the most special warrior, who would get the best cut of meat and the best seat at the table. It was decided a champion must be named from among these warriors in order to settle this dispute once and for all. So, to decide who the greatest warrior was, the 3 men took part in a series of contests, one of which saw their king, Concobber MacNessa, send them out to the court of King Ailill and Queen Maeve in Connacht. Not long ago, Queen Maeve had built her feasting hall near a cave entrance, known at the time as a passage to the otherworld. And each night, from its depths, wild beasts would emerge and terrorise her people. Great, hulking cats with fur pitch black, blacker than night, darker than death. And from within the sea of this black coat, all that could be seen was the inescapable gaze of the beast's glowing red eyes. Queen Maeve tasked the warriors with defending her feasting hall from these beasts all through the night. Eager to prove their worth, the warriors agreed and took up post that evening, steeling themselves for the battle to come. And that night, when dusk fell and the last dying embers of the sun drained away over the horizon, the warriors watched on as from the cave hideous, terrible shapes began to emerge. The cats pounced on the warriors like a pack of lions attacking a herd of gazelles. But the warriors defended themselves fiercely. They would not be beaten by these unearthly spirits, and they fought with every ounce of strength they had within them. For hours the warriors fought, but the beasts could not be killed. Only then, when morning came, and the sun's first amber rays poured out over the land, did the beasts vanish, disappearing in the light. And the warriors had survived the night, but they had not killed the great cats of the cave. Still, though, they had defended the hall as Maeve asked, so she couldn't really fault them. And in return for their help, Queen Maeve presented Loigira with a bronze chalice trimmed with silver birds, to Connell a white gold chalice embellished with silver, and for Cuchulainn a golden chalice decorated with dragon stones. Each warrior believed that he had earned the champion's prize, much to the ire of King Concalbre MacNassa, who was forced to send his men elsewhere to determine who the true champion was. That's not the only trial that the three Ulster warriors undertook in their journeys, but it is the one that gives us the best indication of how this cave found its name. And if you're like me and you have a bit of interest in Irish folklore, you might have recognised some of the names in that story. Cuchulainn, of course, I'm sure most will know, formerly called Setanta, until he killed Cullen's guard dog by smacking a slitter down its throat. And for killing the dog, Setanta offered to take its place and become the Coo of Cullen. Another name you might have recognised was Queen Maeve of Connacht. Apart from having a feasting hall near here, supposedly this cave was actually the birthplace of Maeve. And if I begin to take a look around the part of the cave's entrance I'm in now, known as the souterrain, which is the man-made portion of the cave, I can see an Ogham stone built in to the cave's entrance. And mainly, Ogham stones were used to mark territory, and I think that this could be the case here too, because the stone in front of me reads, Fra, son of Maeve. Now, obviously this stone would have been written long after Queen Maeve was supposedly around, but it does show how this site is closely tied to her. But you might be wondering who the other person mentioned on the stone is. Fra, son of Maeve. Well, Fra is actually the son-in-law to Queen Maeve and King Ailill, and we know about him from the tale of the cattle raid of Fra, not Cooley, Fra, Tain Bo Fra. Fra, hero of Connacht, was a great beauty, the most beautiful man in all of Ireland. He had the body of great whiteness, the hair of great loveliness, the face of great beauty, and the eye of great greyness, and he, a soft youth, without fault, without blemish. Not only handsome, Fra was also famous. Stories of his greatness and his handsomeness had reached all the way to Fuindober, daughter of King Ailill and Queen Maeve. Fuindober had fallen in love with Fra through hearing these stories, and eventually word of her love reached Fra. Fra decided to leave home in pursuit of Fuindober, venturing forth on an epic quest to gain her hand in marriage. But before heading to the court of King Ailill and Queen Maeve, Fra went to see Boann, his aunt, and the goddess of the River Boyne.
O Boann, goddess of the Boyne, I go now to seek the hand of the fair Fuindober. What gifts have you for me?
Many wondrous gifts from the fairy folk I give you, Fra. Take 7 hounds each with 7 silver chains, 7 trumpeteers with flaxen fairy names, 3 harp players and 3 jesters too, 50 white tunics and 50 coats of blue, and take 50 swords with gilded golden hilts, and 50 shields all edged and silver gilt.
Frá left with his gifts and headed to the court of King Ailill and Queen Maeve, where he was warmly welcomed.
Frá, my boy, I'm impressed. What a procession you have. I see you've brought some entertainment too. Why not let us hear your harpers play?
Yeah, why not? What's the worst that could happen?
And the harpers did play. They played melodies of the fairy folk, the likes of which mortals had never known before. So beautiful was the music that these 3 musicians played that 12 of King Ailill's people died from weeping.
Good show, my boy. I can't remember the last time we heard something that good around here. Why not stay with us for a while? We'll drink and feast and play chess. Be our guest.
How long were you thinking?
Not long. A week? Maybe 2.
Yeah, come on then.
After a fortnight of feasting and playing chess, Frá went in search of Fuindober to reveal his true intent. And that night, Frá found his chance to speak to Fuindober without the fear of her parents' hearing, because she was bathing at the time.
Ah! Frá? Is that you?
It is, my lady. I have come to speak with you.
But I'm bathing right now. I'm naked.
Don't worry, I'm not embarrassed.
But
Please, we don't have much time. I want you to elope with me tonight.
well, that's flattering, Frá. But I can't elope. I'm a princess. It's below my station. But you're not. You've got money and status. If you just ask to marry me, there's no reason why my parents would turn you down.
I suppose I could try that.
Please do, because I do want to marry you. In fact, here, take this ring. It was given to me by my mother to keep safe, but I want to give it to you as a token of my love.
I'll treasure it always. It will never leave my side. I will go now and seek your father's permission for us to wed.
Away Frá ran, straight to the chamber of King Ailill and Queen Maeve.
Of course you can have my daughter, but only if you are willing to pay a dowry that I decide.
No value can be put on the love I have for your daughter. But name your price. Whatever it is, I'll pay it.
I want 60 black horses with 60 golden bits. I want 12 plump heifers each with 12 red-eared calves. And finally, when Maeve and I travel to Cooley, I want you and your musicians to come and help in the cattle raid. Once that is done, you can marry Fuindober.
No, sorry, that's too much. In fact, I wouldn't even pay that for your wife.
Okay then. You know this Frá is getting to be more trouble than he's worth. If he wasn't my guest, I'd just run after him and murder him right now. But what if Frá were to have an accident?
The next day, King Ailill invited Frá down to the river.
I've heard you're a pretty good swimmer. Why don't you get into the water so I can see for myself?
Oh yeah? What's the water like? Good quality?
Well, I've never heard of anything dangerous in it. I bathe in the river all the time.
Okay, sounds good.
Frá stripped off his clothes and left them on the river's bank, along with the ring Fuindober had given him. And while Frá swam, King Ailill went through his clothes and found the ring.
Hang on. This is Maeve's ring. What's Frá doing with it? You know what?
With one swift flick, King Ailill flung the ring into the river, where it was swallowed by a salmon. But what King Ailill didn't realise was that Fra had seen the fish swallow the precious ring. Using his skill as a swimmer, Fra caught the fish and swam with it back to shore, leaving it on the rocks. When Fra tried to leave the river, he was stopped by King Ailill.
Wait! Don't get out yet. I want you to do something for me. On the opposite bank of the river there is a rowan tree. I want you to go bring me a branch from the tree.
Why do you want a tree branch?
Because I think its berries are beautiful.
So out Fra swam to retrieve the branch of the rowan tree. But what Fra did not know was that a beast lurked within the river's depths. A serpent, long like an eel, but scaled like a snake. This beast dwelled near the river's bank, entangled in the roots of the rowan tree. And when Fra grabbed hold of the branch and began to pull, he disturbed the beast from its slumber. And as Fra swam back to the bank with the rowan branch in hand, the serpent stalked its prey, swimming ever closer. Fra arrived back at the bank and threw the branch out to the king.
Beautiful. So beautiful. In fact, I think I want a second branch of rowan berries.
Fra swam back out into the middle of the river, making his way towards the tree. But here, the serpent had its prey right where it needed it, in the deepest part of the river. Suddenly, Fra was dragged beneath the water, and for a moment, all was silent. Until a great burst saw both man and beast emerge. The serpent had wrapped itself around Fra and had bit into his side with its dagger-like teeth.
Please! Someone! Throw me a sword!
Nobody move! Fra is having an unavoidable accident. There's nothing we can do.
Help!
He was a good man.
Please!
Taken before his time.
I just need a sword! Anything!
He will be missed!
Then, in a flash, Fwindauber ran towards the water, sword in hand.
Here! Fra! Take this!
And with that, the beast was slain. Both Fra and Fwindauber made their way to shore.
Thank you, dear Fwindauber, for your courage, but I fear it is too late for me now. I may have bested the beast today, but I know he got me good. I know it's my time.
Ailill had Fra taken to a room in his castle and laid out on a bed to await death. Later that night, the king reflected on what had happened.
Well, what's done is done. Fra was a nice boy, but he had to go. Now my daughter, that's another story. She betrayed me today, bringing him that sword. Well, come tomorrow, she shall be repaid for that deed.
And as the last drops of essence slowly left Fra, cries of lamentation echo throughout the keep at his fate. On hearing these cries of despair, 150 maidens of the fairy folk arrived dressed in emerald green cloaks and took Fra away to the burial chamber of Krogan. The next morning, as King Ailill and Queen Maeve sat in their court, Fra entered, unmarked and unscathed.
Fra, you're alive. And you look great. I can't even see where the beast bit you.
I'm kin to the fairy folk of the other world, and they restored life to me.
Well, look, this is obviously a little awkward. I'm sorry, Fra, for what I've done. Really, I hope you can forgive me.
Sure. I forgive you.
Really? You do?
Yeah, no hard feelings. Come on. Let's just have a feast. Play some chess. Put it behind us.
And a great feast was had, full of drinking and merriment. And while the king was busy, Fra called aside a servant in secret.
Listen. Down by the riverbank, there's a fish laid out by the rocks. I want you to go now and get it. Bring it to the kitchen and cook it. But before you do, there's a ring inside. I need you to retrieve. When it's done, bring them both here.
The servant went off at once to do so, leaving Fra to continue his game of chess. And as the day drew on, the merriment continued. But the king had not forgotten his plan to get revenge on his daughter. After a few more hours of drinking, the king called for attention.
Attention, subjects! Bring me my jewels, for I wish to display them. I want everyone here to see the wealth of this kingdom. Yes, that's good. I want to see all my wealth. Fwindauber, where is the ring your mother gave you?
I'm not sure.
Well, go find it. I want to display it for all our guests. You can have it back when I'm done.
I think I must have misplaced it.
Don't embarrass me in front of our guests.
But father, I have no idea where it could be.
Fwindauber, if you don't produce that ring, then I will be forced to put you to death.
But I don't have the ring.
The guests at court assured the king that they didn't need to see the ring and to let the matter go. But he would not.
I would give you any of my jewels for her life. The life that risked to bring me a sword in my time of need.
I don't want your jewels, Fra. There is nothing you could give me to save her, except that ring.
But I don't know where it is. Truly. I have no way of giving it to you.
Then you will perish in its place.
Okay, well, let me go and try to retrieve it, seeing as you want it so much.
Not you. You stay here. Send one of your servants to get it. I don't know why, though. There's no way you could have that ring. It's impossible. So impossible, in fact, that if somehow you do manage to bring me that ring, well, I'd let you choose your own husband.
A maid then entered holding a platter. On it was a salmon, with a golden ring resting on its side.
By the gods, you found the ring. How is this possible?
Maybe I can explain. But first, you tell us what you did with the ring.
All right, fine. When I saw that ring in your purse that day, by the river, I knew Fwindauber had given it to you. But I threw it into the river. I saw the salmon swallow it.
Well, when I first arrived here, I found the ring on the ground. I knew it was valuable, so I picked it up and held on to it for the time being. Later, I heard a maiden was looking for a lost ring, so I went in search of her and asked what my reward would be for its return. A year of love was the promise she made. But I didn't have the ring on me at the time. I didn't see that maiden again until she threw me a sword in the river. Ah, yes, the river. I saw you there too, pick the ring from my purse and throw it into the salmon's mouth. I swam after that salmon and caught it, saving the ring. The very salmon in front of you now.
Oh, Fra. I will never love anyone else but you.
You keep that promise, Fwindauber. And you, Fra, you come with us when we raid the cattle of Cooley. And when we return, you can marry my daughter that night.
It's a deal.
Fra bid farewell to King Alian and Queen Maeve, heading home to check on his cattle. And though this is not the end of Fra's adventure, It is where he leaves King Aliel and Queen Maeve and the area of Rathcrogan behind. But now, when we last spoke, I'm still in the souterrain of the cave. I think now is a good time to try and go a little bit deeper. As I said, it's very wet. Oh. Oh. Okay. It's starting to open up a little bit now, though it's still quite steep and quite slippy. Deeper I go, I can actually begin to see my breath, although it doesn't feel very cold. Now the cave is really starting to open up. I can really see my breath. You can definitely feel it's colder down here. So where I am standing now is sometimes referred to as the passage of the Fae, or the fairy folk. And this passage is said to lead to the Morrigan's lair, and go beyond that, it's believed to be the entrance to the other world, or hell itself. But going back a little bit, what is the Morrigan's lair? Who is the Morrigan? Well, the Morrigan is known as many things. Some say she was the queen of the Dark Fae. Some say she was the goddess of the underworld. Most refer to her as a shape-shifting phantom, a warrior queen goddess who incited battle and violence in her wake. She was the bringer of death and destruction. And if you remember back to earlier when I mentioned Cuchulainn, well, the Morrigan played a role in his death too. When Cuchulainn was nearing the end of his life, having been attacked while travelling on the road, he refused to die laying down. Instead, Cuchulainn crawled towards the nearest rock and hoisted himself up. Then, with what little strength he had left within him, Cuchulainn bound himself to the rock so that he could die standing upright with a sword in hand, a true warrior's death. But even in this state, Cuchulainn was so feared that it was 3 days before anyone came near the rock, anyone would dare to approach him. However, after 3 days, it was the Morrigan that approached first. The goddess took the form of a raven and perched on Cuchulainn's shoulder, letting all know that this was truly the end for the Ulster warrior. And here we are now, in her legendary lair. I think I might even try and go deeper again. And though the cave's entrance outside is, I would say, fairly unassuming, you'd probably miss it if you didn't know what you were looking for once you're in here. I think it's easy to get a sense of how people in ancient Ireland especially would come to associate this place with tales of fairies, of spirits. I think I'll try and make my way back up to the surface now. Oh, this is the bit where you have to get on your hands and knees. Made it back. I made it back to the souterrain. It's a bit of a workout getting back up that cave. It is quite steep and quite narrow. And peeking out, I can see the sunlight streaming through the cave's entrance again. So this is probably a good point to say thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed hearing a few of these tales in the dark. And I'd like to take this time to thank as well the wonderful cast, Liam Wilson-Smith, Molly Downey and Rob Grace, for lending their talents to this project. And I'd like to thank you for listening. Goodbye.